Yeah, we're in beautiful Berlin Wedding in the northwest, the old former west part of the city. Quite close to where the wall was, but still into the residential area. And yeah, this is like where I live, and my studio is nearby, and this is where I've lived actually for the last 9 years. We set up the studio here in 2012, me and Patrick Skoog, and lots of other people share the building as well, but our room is just the two of us. And yeah, this is my day-to-day hood. Yeah, my typical weekday schedule is quite mundane. I mean, I'm a dad. I have a 3-year-old daughter, so every day in the morning I take her to Kita, to the kindergarten, normally on the bike if the weather's good enough, which is really fun, and that's how my day starts. So we wake up around 7, sometimes earlier if I'm unlucky, and I'm normally at the studio by 9:30 every day until about 4. So yeah, that's my weekday schedule, like Monday to Friday. But yeah, it's always nice to come out for a walk around, get a breath of fresh air. It's important sometimes in the music making process. Yeah, I think it was in about 2007 that I decided to move here to Berlin. So it's been 11 years now. I moved in 2008, actually, in the summer. And yes, it's been a long time already. I feel like I'm part of the environment here somehow. It's definitely home. And I'm happy. I like it here. It's you have space, and it's affordable, and it's a cool neighborhood to live around here. It's pretty incognito, I would say. Like, it's not like living in Kreuzberg or elsewhere in Berlin. Yeah, the label Counterchange was originally formed in 2012 after my album came out on NRK with the same name. There were 2 white labels that came out as part of the project, and which had the catalogue number Counterchange 0001 or something like that, so I continued it, basically, just rolled with the idea. But then it quickly became kind of an outlet for graphic design, and also to involve some other artists and photographers who I'm friends with and who I really wanted to have involved. And yeah, I mean, there's no strict visual identity, but it kind of evolved from being quite blurry and colourful, and I would say a little bit painterly, the artwork in the beginning, and then became a bit more black and white and bold and strong and tough later on. Yeah, and we're on release number 13 now, and number 14, which will come out in February, will be this big compilation that I'm planning. It's a DJ mix and compilation called Stream State. It's going to be four records, so like a four-pack box set, also with additional digital tracks and a DJ mix by myself. And this is some of the artwork, which is by a painter from New York called Eric Minter, who I've been working with to basically choose the perfect cover for. And yeah, I'm super excited about it. And yeah, back to color, basically lots of color, and kind of a bit of a new chapter, I would say. It's a big challenge or it's quite a pressure, let's say, to try to be innovative all the time. A lot of the music that I love comes from the 90s and is, let's say, rather basic in terms of production, but there's an edge, there's something like, it was the first wave, you know, it was the first time people did that stuff, and it's funky, it's catchy, it's got a real life of its own. And I find that hard to recreate. So when you also consider trying to be innovative at the same time, it's a big challenge, but yet there are still people out there doing it. And yeah, I mean, I think you just have to forward your own music. All you can really worry about is what you're doing personally, and just trying to push yourself to not repeat the same tried and tested formulas. You know, swapping up some gear in the studio, selling something, buying something new, that can always give you inspiration. It doesn't have to be brand new gear. There's so much stuff out there now. But I think it's how you use it, trying to really stretch a piece of gear to its full potential, making those sounds like as out there as possible. It's still a young genre of music. It's only 30, 40 years old at the most, and I think there's still plenty of room out there for it to grow. Yeah, I mean, I've been here for a long time now, so I think in general everything is kind of set up, as you probably saw in the live jam. Everything is more or less within reach, and I can quickly just grab something and get into an idea. But every time is different, you know, it's always different depending on my mood, or depending on what time of day. If I'm tired, if I'm full of energy, if I just drank 6 shots of espresso or not. But yeah, normally I approach new projects with just a background sound or a basic riff or a loop, and just tend to jam with a few things kind of all synced up together, and then start stripping it down into the individual parts, putting it all inside the computer, then arranging. I love to record long passes of audio, and I'll just sit with one instrument for like 10 minutes and just record all of the possible directions that sound can go in, and then at least I have tons of audio to work with. And yeah, I would say it's quite sort of free in that respect, but I generally sit then afterwards very patiently and EQ things carefully, and really take time in the mixing phase, and in the final kind of 5%, as they say, I generally spend a long time kind of perfecting the mix down, or trying to perfect it. I'm really fussy about that, and never really happy, but that's just the way it is. At some point there's a deadline, and then you have to send it off, and then it's done. So yeah, just try and get the best possible results. If I'm working on an EP, then of course the tracks need to sound like they fit together, and conceptually there would be like a tone, or a kind of a set of instruments or a set of sounds that go together. When I work with the Korg, I generally just keep one pattern kind of saved, and then I constantly change settings or parameters and then save it again. And then like sometimes some sounds will feed through from one track to another. But yeah, of course, sometimes I just have an idea in my head. Like very often if I'm riding my bike to the studio in the morning, I'll just be like, I need to try, you know, this bass sound with that kick drum, and then just something happens. But yeah, I mean, with techno, it's pretty freeform. It's like, it can just be that perfect combination of 2 or 3 sounds that sets off an idea, and then then you come back to it the next day and add some strings or a pad, and then suddenly it becomes like something else. So try not to conform, or try not to constrict myself too much to those original ideas whenever you start something. You know, you have an idea, and then it generally ends up with me anyway, being something pretty different in the end. So yeah, like polyphonic synths are quite important in the music I make. I mean, the original Inland records were all made with a Juno 106 that we were borrowing from a friend, and there's lots of kind of rich, big chords in there, big pads. these days we're using the BLOFELD. I say we, that's me and Patrick, my studio partner, Patrick Skook, who I share the studio with. And it's amazing actually, you can do a lot with it. It's really rich and has a cool sound. It's digital, but there's a lot of possibilities there with that. And I love that you can just press the hold function and you can play some chords and then, or you can hit free beforehand, play a chord and then it just plays forever. You can also do the same thing with the arpeggiator. So that's really fun. And I use that quite a lot. And then this is the Korg Electribe, which I've had for over 10 years. That was actually the first instrument that I ever, or the first outboard thing that I bought, that I started to use to make music, and I still use it a lot. And it's just so versatile. You can make great kind of gritty textural things with it. So the cool thing with the Korg is that the modulation section has, if you apply the modulation, which is essentially an LFO, to the filter cutoff, and you turn up the resonance really high, it will self-oscillate. The filter's quite nasty, quite meaty, and you can get like cool kind of synthy, bleepy, tonal stuff just with the sample and hold LFO. Which is great. I use it a lot. I bought this Erebus, Shredbox Erebus monosynth a few years ago, and I really like it. It's really fat, really warm and bassy. Use it a lot for sub-bass lines and heavy bottom end stuff. But it also gets interesting. It's sort of like a 303, but has its own character. It's not a 303. It doesn't have the same filter or envelope, but you can use it in that direction if you want, and it has a built-in delay, nice kind of dirty Bucket Brigade analog delay, and you can put it out of tune, which is nice. There's two oscillators, and you can detune them, or you can tune them, or you can use different waveforms for the two oscillators, which is fun. This is the mute synth from Dirty Electronics, which I use a lot, and it's a kind of lo-fi, 8-bit, I guess, synth, which was quite cheap, and I built the box myself just to make it a little bit more longer lasting. But it's fun. You've got a little patch bay here with these connection points on the front, and yeah, I just use it a lot. I use it for making weird sounds, and then I'll find a nice loop, or it's just a fun kind of like trigger for starting a new track or something like that. And then a good old workhorse is the Analog 4. My friend Hoesen from Cassegrain was really like insistent that I buy one of these or start using it, and he showed me how to get into it, because you can get really deep with the programming. But I love it. It's essentially a 4-voice synth or a 4-track synthesizer, so you can have 4 different loops playing at the same time, 4 different melodies, or like a bass line. You can build a whole track on there. You can do drums. And it has a very specific kind of, some would say, kind of plasticky synth sound, but I really like it. I find it cuts through really nicely in tracks, like cuts through in the mix, particularly in the high mids and the higher spectrum. And the TR-8S was the upgrade that I made from the good old TR-8, which I used in my live sets a lot, and really love it and really learned how to use it quickly. And the TR-8S is cool because you can put your own samples in. So what I've done now is, like, I had a live set, which I basically built all inside this. So there's like 12 tracks from my back catalog, which I cut up and imported kick drums and hi-hats and short loops and one-shots. And it's great because now I can just remix stuff with this, or I can build new tracks based on those sounds. Sometimes I even would import new sounds in there. Yeah, it's super versatile and sounds really good. I think also really important to mention is the mixing desk, because that's like a big instrument for me in itself, and I've really practiced using it. And coming from DJing as well, it's kind of nice because some of the gestures and fader movements you make in a mix when you're really concentrated can really pay off in the studio as well. And kind of like gently working the EQs whilst you're recording stuff can really help. Using the send and returns as well. So yeah, the mixer is a big instrument for me, and I'm always kind of like coming back to it. It's by no means a super high-end mixer, but it does the job, and I like how it sounds. And I find the send and returns really sensitive, so it's cool. Yeah, so just a basic Tascam old stage mixer. Yeah, and then of course Ableton Live. It's the brain. Everything goes in there, and projects can get super complicated and with like 50 channels, but you can also do so much just with a 2-track recording, just jamming, recording everything through the mixer into Ableton and then carefully editing. Like audio editing is a big part of what I do. But yeah, my influences are very, very broad. My mum plays the piano and was always playing classical music at home, and she sings in a choir, and I studied guitar, or I learnt blues guitar. It was what I was really into as a child, and I still love playing the guitar. Yeah, and at home we listen to all kinds of music. I mean, you'll find, I don't know what I've got here, but there's quite a lot of stuff that isn't really necessarily club music that I have on vinyl, and I just love listening to things while we're cooking or while we're relaxing, and trying to show my daughter now as well teach her about music. Yeah, everything from Neil Young to Tim Hecker to, I don't know, there's tons of stuff. Of course, here I have like Jeff Mills and some kind of bargain basement finds that I still love. This is another one which I'll show you in a minute. I mean, look, like I started buying records when I was 16, and then some of the early ones were really, really kind of charty, big records from the UK. This is Thomas and Filterheads, Sunshine, Lazy People. It's 2002, so I would have been 17. So it's not one of the first records I bought, but it's kind of a big one in terms of the fact that it was like on the radio. You know, you turn on Radio 1 at 6 p.m. on a Friday night, and then this is playing. And I was like, whoa, what is that? It's tribal techno. It was kind of cool, kind of influential. It was on Intech, Carl Cox's label, before the minimal digital era hit, when things were still quite rough. And like, yeah, you know, these are things that I still kind of hold on to because they mean something to me. On the other hand, there's always new producers and new records that I get given, which I'm falling in love with. This is from my friend Diego, Project Gestalten, or Projekt Gestalten, I think is how you say it in German. And yeah, I think that it's this one. Just reminds me of those early records that I picked up, and I would buy stuff in record shops, maybe even without being able to listen to it. Just look at the sleeve, and kind of, even just from reading about the liner notes, like where was it produced, who wrote it, it's like, or the name, you know, this record is Adam J from Indianapolis. The A1 track is Intimate Voyeur Machine. I was like, okay, it costs 50p. I had to buy it, but I ended up playing it in Berkheim, so, you know, like, this is all kind of where it's coming from. You have to hear this Adam J one, it's really cool. Lucky find. Sick, like, I think I bought that when I was like 18. That's proper techno, and I didn't really know about it, you know, I didn't know what to expect. Yeah. I mean, this is like thick. Yeah, that's the kind of techno I like. It's like rough and bouncing and gritty, but soulful as well, I guess. So yeah, and this is one of my favorite Jeff Mills records. I went through a period of digging around and trying to find a lot of these old secondhand. This is the Every Dog Has Its Day series, volume 4. And yeah, this is kind of a point that I always try to get to in a long DJ set, is to be able to play a track like this. Just beautiful. You know, it's melodic and dreamy, but it's also urgent and it's also driving, and it has this, this is why I fell in love with Detroit techno. It has this kind of soul and funk, but it has this kind of heart-aching, like, I don't know, melancholia to it as well. And I think sometimes Jeff Mills' stuff is a little too discordant and abstract for me, or doesn't quite capture the moment that I'm looking for, but stuff like this is just right up my street. This is an old Moby record that I bought. You know, a lot of these things I picked up in London when I lived there, in the second-hand record shops like in Soho or in, I don't know, in Notting Hill. I guess I might have bought this. But it's called Ambient, and I didn't really know what ambient music was. And some of these tracks aren't even really ambient music. It's like, it's from '93, so it's early New York, Chicago house in places. Super nice, super dreamy. It's Moby, you know, like you would never expect it. But it was a big one for me. I really love it. I really listen to it a lot still. And some of the pieces are really short. There's like 5 or 6 tracks on each side. It's a real album, but it only lasts about half an hour in total. And I like that format of like the short album on 2 sides of vinyl, which kind of crosses over into rock and pop music and other realms of electronic music, I guess. Yeah. Maybe we should listen to a little bit of Clara Intellecto, because this is an early one of his, and he changes his sound so often, or his sound has changed a lot throughout the years, but when I bought this is from 2004. I mean, there's just some amazing production on here, like beautiful, weird, abstract kind of electro drums. Yeah, and this is kind of coming back again now, but when I heard this, it's like, whoa, how did he make those beats? I have no idea. So then I kind of went down a little research path into finding some of these kind of glassy, cold, metallic drum sounds, and it's very, very craft work actually.
What is up? Felix Fleer here, bringing you the R-Imprint YouTube channel for the very first time actually, in addition to our already existing R-Imprint radio show, which you may or may not be familiar with. And in case you are not, I urge you to check out the R-Imprint SoundCloud channel, where we have an almost complete archive of, I think by now, upwards of 70 hours worth of free download content, including DJ mixes and interviews with amazing artists like Oscar Mulero, Kangning Ray, Sire, and dozens more, really just the best of the best. And yeah, in addition to that, obviously also go check out the Stream State compilation that Inland mentioned earlier. It features not only a track of yours truly as well, but also some other super exciting artists, including Efdemin, Peter van Hoesen, Boddika, Inland himself obviously, Joel Mull, and the list goes on. Super great release, and I'm super happy to be a part of it. And lastly, I should maybe also say 1 or 2 words about the future of this channel in general. First of all, we already shot another episode of this series that you watch right now, where we are going to visit friends of the label and artists that inspire us in general, and try to show you a bit how they work and what the philosophy is that drives their music. And besides from that, you can also expect some making of content from the label and radio show, and especially our events. Lately also the Synergy events, which we are doing in collaboration with artists from the Kunstakademie in Düsseldorf. So yeah, if any of that sounds interesting, feel free to keep an eye on this channel. I'd say public service announcement over. Peace out.